This is a production of Cornell University.
Yeah, so maybe a little different presentation. I used to research and what's going on in that world. I'm sort of in between worlds. So I'm that bridge that working with folks at Cornell like yourselves and the faculty and staff and bringing that information to the growers, the consultants, the ag industry that I work with, boots on the ground. So it's kind of a neat place to be in between. I've been in industry, I've been in academia. So this extension role is something I feel good about talking about, particularly to the young folks today. The faculty, they know it, they understand what extension is. Most, have some appointments, but the graduate students, I've been in your shoes. I've been in that place where I didn't know which direction I was going to go. So I kept going to school. So I would have stayed for a postdoc too, except got married. And my wife says, you know what, it's time to make money, buddy. Get your butt out in the real world. We got a baby, let's go. So I went in industry. So I started in industry, ag chemical as a tech service rep. And I tell this story, I told Vipin this morning, moved out here, transferred from Illinois out to here, covered 6 states, and BASF, a larger chemical company, purchased my American Cyanamid, we were a small company, and they let all of us go. So I moved my family out from to Illinois to here, new place, and then within 3 months we were done. And some of you folks remember Russ Hahn. Russ is still around, but when he was weed science and Vipin's position, I worked a lot with Russ and doing research and trials, herbicide trials. And he called me and he said, Mike, there's a position open in Cooperative Extension. The office is in your county where you live up in Rochester. He said, I think you need to check it out, see what it's all about. Maybe look for other jobs in industry and keep looking. But I think you'll like. I mean, I got to know you a little bit. I think you'd like this role. So I applied for it, got it. 2 months later, I was working in 2000, and here I am, 25 seasons later, working in this role as an extension educator, and it's been fantastic. I've interviewed with Pioneer, with DeKalb, with Monsanto, with Syngenta. I've looked back thinking I want to go back into industry, and it's just not for me. I kind of found that passion. I found the sweet spot, and it's something I just want to tell you guys. These things like this are out there. You may not ever heard of these regional teams, and that's why I'm here to talk a little bit about what these regional teams are, who they are, where they are, what we do, and they are definitely an opportunity, not just in New York, but in other states. So we'll go from there. Okay, all right. So again, I get this question all the time. I have a lot of relatives in Chicago, right? What do you want to live in New York for? What do most people think when you move to New York?
The city.
Yes. All right, they think this. And Western New York is so far from that. And I'm going to admit something today, and you guys would think I'm crazy. I have never been to New York City.
Oh.
I tell people that, and they're like, oh, we got to go. I'm like, I'm okay. Somebody takes me, puts me in a car, gets me there, shows you where to go. I'm okay with that. But I am not driving down to New York City to deal with that. It scares the heck out of me. So I have not been there. I have friends that every year they're like, oh, we're taking you. We're going to a Yankees game. We're going to play. We're doing this. I'm like, great, set it up. I'll go. But not yet. So that's, but we all know, those us in the field know, New York's a big ag, it's a big ag state. I mean, it's huge. The 2022 census just came out here a little while ago. We go through all those numbers and look what's going on in our region. 6.5 million acres of ag in the state. Now, it's not in Illinois or an Iowa or an Indiana, but it's a lot of ag. Ag generates so many dollars in the state, $5.3 billion. And that's across everything from what I do to the vegetables, to the wines, the grapes, to the fruits. It's huge. And farms, they said roughly, almost 31,000 farms. Unfortunately, that does go down every year. Our 5-year census, that does drop pretty good. A lot of our acres doesn't drop out, but farms consolidate, right? Smaller farms are dropping out, bigger farms are, picking up some of those, but at least they're staying in ag. They're not disappearing into Walmarts and housing divisions. Some of them are, but we're trying to keep that as low as we can do. Either keep it ag. Top 10 in a lot of our commodities. And this surprises people. Now, the first, we're a dairy state, right? So dairy doesn't surprise me. So number one in cottage cheese, sour cream, and yogurt. Beets snuck in here this year for the first time. So that was not 5 years ago. They were not number one. They snuck in this year. Maple syrup, apples, cabbage, snap beans at number two in the US. Grapes, third. Obviously, we have a lot of just wine grapes, but also, up on Lake Erie, we have a lot of the Concord grapes, right? All the jelly and juice that you're driving down I-90, going through, Chautauqua and Allegheny County, you'll see all that up there. Fourth in floriculture, fifth in milk production. Like I said, we are a dairy state. And then green peas and squash. So there's a lot of veggies that are grown, particularly, both ends of the state, that we're doing pretty good. So I want to talk about regional extension teams and the development, how these teams came to be. And if you look at a state, we have a lot of counties and boroughs. I think there's 62 counties, boroughs, all added up. And many of you are way too young to remember the show Green Acres. Some of you older folks remember that. Okay, I barely remember it, but it was about, small town life, the county extension agent. Every county had a county extension agent, a jack of all trades, knew about everything from stuff that a master gardener would do to taking care of your lawn to all the agriculture. And, that disappeared. You just don't have this type of people that have that type of knowledge and the knowledge that's needed to meet the demands of the public and growers and the industry. And so they started changing. So my predecessor, his name is Nate Herendeen. I don't think anybody in here might know Nate. He was an extension for 40 years. And he hired me in 1999. But I called him the other day. He's still working. He's still a consultant. He's 83 years old in Niagara County. And so I said, hey, give me a little tutorial. How did these regional teams start? When did the first regional team start and go away from individual counties? And he said, I got hired in 1969 out of Cornell. And he says, and that's the year the first regional team started. So they, the first one was up here in the Finger Lakes, Wayne, Seneca, Ontario, and Yates. That was the first Finger Lakes dairy livestock team that started. The next year, they started a team up here in Niagara, Orleans, Genesee, and Monroe. So these 2 4-county teams, eventually, they pulled Livingston County in the middle, and those 9 counties formed the first team, major team in 1991. So not that long ago. In 91, I came on board in 2000. And since 2000, there's now is 9 teams, 9 regional teams throughout the state of New York. And I'll mention some of those. So as regional teams, they're only good because of the partnership that's developed. And it's a triumvirate between the university, the teams themselves, and then actually, the actual county offices. So if you look at just my individual team, 50% of our funding comes from the county offices, 25% comes from us generating dollars through grants and programming, and 25 comes through Smith-Lever dollars through the university. So that's what makes it successful, is that it's not just one funding source. We have multiple funding sources, and that just makes everything happen. And the advantage to these regional teams really, because you couldn't hire, each county couldn't hire the individual. My team has 6 specialists, 2 dairy, 2 livestock, 2 dairy, 2 field crops, 1 livestock and 1 farm business. A county couldn't hire all those people, but through this, with other counties, the university, and us generating dollars, they can get these, high-end, high-skilled, connections in industry throughout the state, impact programming, focused on, what are the issues facing the ag industry, not just local things, but what are the big issues? New York, Northeast, US, other ag teams. So I have 4 other field crop specialists outside of my team that I collaborate. We're a team within a team. Every Thursday we meet to discuss what's going on in our counties. How do we collaborate? How do we work together across the state? Cornell here has been fantastic in regards to support. They handle all our grant work that comes through, a lot of the administrative stuff. B. Brockner over here is just phenomenal. That whole crew up in Roberts Hall. And again, cost efficiencies. These counties could not afford to hire all these specialists with the degrees and things that we have without the collaboration. So the efficiencies is huge. And, meeting the priorities of funders. That's one of the main objectives, right? Is, we meet the needs of the public. So these are all the regional teams in New York. Out here to the west, we have the Cornell Vets program. They cover 14 counties across Western New York. Lake Ontario runs the fruit belt right up there, Niagara across to Oswego. Lake Erie Regional Program, if you guys have ridden down, 90, you see grapes on either side of you on the lake. That's a lot of the Welch's grapes over there. The Southwest New York team, they're the big counties south of me. So they're Allegheny, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, Steuben, Erie. We're the 10 counties above that. Show you that. The Finger Lakes great program. What it says, covers the Finger Lakes. It's a person of one, a team of one. He always says, he goes, every time we tease him about employees and that, he goes, well, my employees all agree. And it's him, right? So he's got nobody to argue with, just Hans. Then we have a dairy field crop in South Central. We have one up in Central. And then we have the Eastern Hort team, which is a monster. I don't know how many counties, the whole east side of the state, but it combines fruit and vegetable into one team. So it's a major team. Again, there's Hans, team of one, our great Finger Lakes grape specialist. Fruit team has 4 people now. This is my team here. We have 6 specialists and a couple support. The veg team has 6 specialists, cover those things. So teams can vary in size. And we all enjoy what we're doing, right? This picture here is famous. This is Christy Hopething. She is our onion specialist up in the muck soils. And she used to be a cheerleader. So she does all these great flips and everything. She's always doing cartwheels and getting us all fired up. But yeah, we all have our little role to play. This is actually when we started working in hemp. When we first started doing that, one of the crops I worked on. This is our crew. Once a year, we try to get together, all of us, all the teams. We also have a statewide team called the Harvest New York team that also works mainly more New York City, more urban agriculture, but also now they have 2 specialists that are working in climate. So obviously that's a need. So we're seeing more demand for research and things on carbon and such. But yeah, that's the whole crew when we get together. We usually do 3 days of training. So this is something I wanted to put out there, looking at the regional teams. When we first started putting teams together in 2005, it was a pretty good budget for those teams over there. 1.7 million. The associations put another $1 million plus in. Smith Lever, limited PGF funds, which is again through grants, things that the teams generate. We had 21 specialists, 3 support. Here we are 20 years later, where a lot of extension on universities is going downhill. We are still going up. We're still putting teams together, still putting specialists on board. 6 million, even 6.5 million, regards to the budgets for those 10 teams. The association puts another 2.2 in, 1.1 in Smith Lever. This is where it got big. 3 million and generated by the teams themselves, by us. So that's been huge. Again, anytime you have a situation where you have multiple funded sources, you're I don't say you're safe, but you can be a little more relaxed. It's not, money's not coming from just the state. Is the state budget going to pass this and that? We have some backup now that we have 3 different funders in this partnership. Again, 61 specialists now, plus 26 technical and administrative staff in there. So 87, we jumped it quite a bit. I wanted to show some of the teams and how they work in the counties. So with this map here, it shows how many teams each county participates with. The 2 bright blue ones up in Niagara and Wayne, they have 4 counties. 4 teams. So they have the field crop and dairy, they have the grape, they have the vegetable, and they have the fruit. Now those are 4 counties. 2 counties that are very diverse. Agriculture is insane in both of them, but they take on all 4 teams. The ones in red have 3 different teams. The ones in gold have 2 different teams, and the ones in green just have 1 team. And the ones in white do not have a team. Some have their own internal stuff. There's still some counties that have just an internal county person that runs everything. You can see here, this monster of a Eastern Hort team runs all those counties on the east. That's a far way north to south. You've got to run that whole thing. So that's kind of gives you an idea of what the regional teams, who they are, where they are, to give you a perspective. Now I'm going to talk about my team. Break this down into one of us, Northwest New York, where we cover those 10 counties from pretty much Niagara Falls, diagonal to Seneca Falls. Covers us all in there. Very diverse. Again, if I were to pick, when you look at vegetable, fruit, grape, this is the area. I call this the hidden gem. had a conversation with him on the way down here. A lot of grapes, obviously, with the Finger Lakes. The environment's perfect for them. And a lot of ground of growers that I work with is being bought by big dollars. A lot of people coming out of Napa Valley, out of California, because land is cheaper here. Even though it's expensive as could be here, still, I think so, it's cheaper than California. So we're seeing these great, every year we get new vineyards and pasture land, things cleared for this. So I'm like, I don't want to talk about how great my area is. This is a terrible area, don't come here. But it's the way it is. So we're losing ground and it's going for big dollars. And between that and solar, we're losing ground when it comes to cropping. Just to move across to those 10 counties, where we're not in one, it'd be great if we were in one office, right? But we're spread throughout the area based on where we live. Batavia is where 4 of us are actually located up there in Genesee County office. And we work out of the Genesee CCE offices. That's where our office is. We have 2 in Livingston County, 1 in Canandaigua in Ontario. And there's me up in Wayne County in the Newark office. So we are spread around throughout the area. We do have 1 assistant and 1 field support person. And I wanted to point this out because I mentioned it. Our job descriptions are 80% extension, 20% research. And you'd be like, wow, that's never going to happen here, obviously. We're lucky to get 60-40, 50-50 if you do have an extension appointment. So it is really nice to have that 80% extension appointment because I'm boots on the ground. That's mainly what I'm doing. And then throwing in some research on the side there. I always throw this up here. It's low. I like to brag about my area. To you guys, I'll brag. But potential buyers, no. But for my stuff on the field crop side of things, these are the new numbers, the 22 census numbers. I like to throw them up there. 43% of the grain corn is grown in those 10 counties that I work. It's a lot. It's darn near almost half of the grain corn in the state is right there in that corner. Not so much in dairy. 26% of the silage corn is in that area. We do have, Wyoming is, I think, the 2nd biggest dairy county, but county and dairy is pretty much spread evenly throughout the state. Add those up, 35% of the corn, total corn in the state, is grown in those 10 counties. Soybeans, we get a little better. 57% of all the soybeans are grown in those 10 counties. And even better, with wheat, 61% of all the wheat production happens right there. So, and I could get bigger numbers looking at rye and oats and malting barley, all those other things, but these are the big guns that I work with, just to show you the impact that area has on the grain crops. So a little bit about my team members. I mentioned before, we have 2 dairy specialists, 2 field crop specialists, a livestock, and then a farm business management. So there's 6 of us that run that area. Dairy, of course, is very important. We have 3 counties, they're massive in dairy. Margaret and Caitlin do a fantastic job they do a ton of programming, working amongst themselves, work very well with the other dairy specialists across the state. And then you have Pro Dairy, right? That's right here on campus. So you have a state organization of state specialists that they collaborate with all the time and bringing them out. And they bring us in to work on, do a lot of podcasts and such. Margaret wasn't in nutrition realm things. Now she's more just with cow health. She's good, some of the technology with robotic milking and roti parlors. She's involved in a lot of that, the more precision ag side of things. Value added is huge for us, right? Guys, dairies are always trying to make more money. So she's always looking at different ways that they can diversify and make more different products with their milk and continue an added income, as well as best management practice. Caitlin Lutz, she's been on about 2 years. She's very important. She's a vet. She was a veterinarian in her former life, but she's bilingual. And folks, that is huge to us in the large dairy industry with labor. And she is busy all the time communicating, cross-cultural communication, training employees, rewriting best management practices in Spanish. If there's some sort of a problem going on internally, she'll come in and be that mediator between the owners and the employees. So she has a huge role when it comes to the cross-cultural and with labor. She's been a fantastic addition to us. Again, this is some of the dairy programs they do. They're all hands-on, smaller groups, on farm, everything from calving, herds person. They do a hoof trimming, which is really cool. I went to one not too long ago where they have cadaver hoofs. And they actually have these, put them on stands, and you get to learn on cadaver hoofs how to trim up, hoof care is huge, with dairy cows. If they're not walking, they're in trouble. So it's some really good hands-on programs they do all summer. Just showing some of this bottom one here. That's one of the cadaver hoofs that they're working on. But they're really big into podcasts, especially working with Pro Dairy. That group. I know Margaret worked on like 4 different podcasts last week alone, and it's very, very popular as a podcast from the university standpoint. All right, I want to get to the important stuff, but that's not true. The field crops. So it's nice to have. We're the only team right now that has 2 field crop specialists working that range. So we kind of divide up the chores. So myself, I'm mainly the grain person. So I'm working on the soybean, small grains, corn, and then pest management. As an entomologist, of course, I'm covering bugs, but also Vipin's keeping busy. I'm going to tell you that right now. Working with weed science, I'm finding him things, and he keeps getting me busy. And then pathology. So those are my 3 specialties with pest management. Jody is more the forage side of things. So that's, she's working with the corn silage, she's working with the haylage, alternate sources of feed. She's right now working with some brown midrib, marrow sterile forage sorghum. She's got a bunch of trials out throughout the state. She thinks it can be cheaper to grow than corn silage, better quality. So we got like 8 trials that are going to come off here in 2 weeks across our region, looking at that. Again, I'm working with, herbicide resistance is a big one. Seed insecticide alternatives with neonics going out in a couple years. And I do a lot with high management wheat. That's kind of my thing. Where Jody's on, again, the forage side. She does a lot with soil science. She does a lot with soil health. She's starting to get more into some of the technology, looking at drones and such out in the field. Again, we're busy all summer. I'm collecting bugs. I got lots of pheromone traps. I'm keeping track of degree days and letting growers know what's coming in. Black cutworms flying in, armyworms are flying in, when you should be out there scouting. We measure forage heights. If Jerry Cherney was here, he'd give me a fist bump looking at forages and heights and trying to predict when the best quality is going to be for harvest. So we keep track of that and we put things out. I do what's called a crop alert. I've been doing it weekly since May 1st. In fact, yesterday was the last one I'm doing for the year, my 21st week, where I put out a 2-page what's going on in the region. It goes out virtually to about 1,500 people, and then we'd send it to another 100 Plain community folks through the mail. So that's been going on for 21 weeks. But we do our own research. We're working sometimes with industry, the fertilizer companies, and then working with faculty in the field. Winter programs are a big deal. I do Corn Congress. It's the largest corn meeting in the state. 400 plus people come to that. Vipin spoke the last 2 years at Corn Congress, and then Soybean Congress is the next month in February. 300 people this last year, where we half the day we devote to soybean, half we devote to small grains. Jody does a forage congress every year. We do a lot of fertilizer and pesticide classes, and I do a lot of training for taking the pesticide, getting your license. Farm business management. And I always laugh when I see this because I put this picture of John. You know how hard it is to find a picture of a farm business management person in the field? It's unheard of. Well, I got him. I caught him on camera one day. I don't know how old this picture is, but you just don't see them in the field. They stay in the office and they do their thing. But John has been great, particularly within a dairy state like this. There weren't a lot of people doing crop economic stuff. And so I've kind of converted him over the last couple of years where we're working with new crops like hemp and malting barley. Every year he looks at corn silage. What's the cost of production of corn silage? What people should be buying and selling for. Right now we're looking at analysis of corn and soybean. There's really nothing in the state that's done on some of these things. So John has been my great, sidekick when it comes to the economics on the crop side. Again, he's also getting into a lot of soil health. That's a huge thing right now, looking at, does it pay off? So he's been working really closely with a lot of folks on their soil health practices. And then, solar energy. That's something that's coming up. And I think every back road I take now, I see a new plot that's gone in, unfortunately. So we're going to deal with that, in the longer term. And our last team member is Nancy Glazier. She works with small farms, a lot with the Plain communities that we have, Amish and Mennonite, but she is definitely our livestock person. She's known for her pasture, grazing plans, working with chickens, goats. She always tells us, I'll work with any animal you can eat. Okay, does that include horses? No. Alpaca? No. She passes those off. She goes, I'm only going to work with it if you can eat it. So that's where she draws the line. And that's just the way it is. But beef is her big thing, beef quality assurance. She does a lot of work there. Doing things with internal parasites right now. There's a swine 101 course that she's doing next week in Niagara County. And then she's working with a really cool project looking at feed through insecticides and how that infects dung beetles that break down cow pats. Like, why am I not working on this project? You know, it's bugs. I should be working on it. But yeah, so they're sampling and looking at farms that feed an insecticide, feed through versus don't. And definitely there's a huge difference. You're not seeing the dung beetle population, which, you know, a lot of them are predators on maggots, on fly maggots. So that's a cool project she's working on right now. We put a lot of publications. Obviously, our quarterly highlights, we put those, you know, to our funders, to the counties, to the board of legislators, to the folks here at Cornell. Quarterly, this is just an example. This is an older, this is 2019 example, one of my crop alerts, one side of it, where I'm putting pictures and links and what I see that week, pretty much is what I'm writing about. We have our Ag Focus, which is our monthly that we put together, our magazine. Our year in review. This is a newer one that Caitlin started doing. It's the Dairy Culture Coach. It actually puts out articles, same article in Spanish and English, a couple of them together so that employers and employees can read the same article and they're hearing the same thing, okay? And they can talk about it then together, what's going on. So she puts these out quarterly, and they're a big hit on the dairy farms. I didn't talk about Ashley. Ashley is our admin, and she is fantastic. I hired her, she's younger than my children, which is getting weird to hire folks that are younger than my kids. But she has really, marketing has been substantial. She's a fantastic marketing plan, has all this stuff that I'm not in, you know, LinkedIn and Instagram and all this stuff. I'm not on that, but she's getting our stuff out there. More people, the younger generation, people are now seeing some things that wouldn't have seen it otherwise. So marketing for the younger generations is a place we need to go, and she's taken us there. So she's been great. All right, let's talk about this extension bridge. I mentioned before, you know, we kind of sit in the middle. Cornell Cooperative Extension, we sit up here, taking the stuff from the university, and we bring that out to our growers, to the industry people, to the consultants that I work with. And that really, to me, is key. Key to my success, building trust with my audience, is bringing you folks out, you know, the trusted source of information out to the growers. And so that gives me, you know, the confidence, and gives them the confidence to trust in what we're doing. And it's funny, I was down here last week. I was on a panel. All the executive directors from all the counties were down here for 3 days. And they asked some of the team leaders to come over and speak a little bit about their success in the counties. And I was first, and it was funny, we had a bunch of beer. And somebody got upset because they thought we were going to open it. But they were handing out as, if you answer the question, you got a beer. And so, being a smart guy, I grabbed a beer, and I was the first to speak. And I'm like, you know, I'm going to cross this off my bucket list right now. I'm going to give a presentation with a beer in my hand. Now, it wasn't open, but it still got done. It got checked off the list. So that's how we started things. But they asked, what's the most important thing you do or you have done as an extension person? And number one was faculty engagement. That was the top thing for me, where I feel I have been successful in getting that link established right away, and bringing that person out to the field, introducing them, getting the growers and consultants to know them, trust their work, get their work in my counties. I think that's important. Is local research. You know, they don't care if it happened down in Long Island. That means nothing to Northwest New York. But if you got something that's down the road in Orleans County, I'm listening now. I'm going to trust that data a lot more than Long Island or somewhere down to the east. So yeah, building that personal relationship, I think, is number one for me. I've worked really hard with Vipin. We've got a great relationship, just in a lot of things. And he walked into some big problems right away that got dumped on him, so that always helps in regards to engaging somebody. And I've been able to help him out by finding these locations, getting trials out, and in turn, he comes out, we do field days, speaks at congresses and that. So it has to work both ways across there. But it can start with just phone calls and texts. Gary Bergson's not here today. He just texted me today. A fantastic picture of him kayaking up north, he and his wife this week. But Gary's one that, man, back and forth of pictures as a pathologist is huge. And so we've always had that relationship through texts and emails, a lot of pictures, troubleshooting. I'll get stuff from growers that, man, if I don't know what it is, boom, I'm going to forward it. And I'm looking for an answer real quick in regards to this. And if we can't figure it out, then it's going to be a boots on the ground trip. Get you out of the field. We're going to walk with the grower. We're going to see it live, feel it, smell it, touch it, and figure this out. So that's huge. Pest scenarios, again, field visits, consultants. Before Vipin came on, I was working with Lynn Sosnowski, and we had a Palmer incident, which was rare. And she and I brought her out to it. We visited. The next week, we ended up having the whole consultant group, Western New York Crop Management. She did a training for the whole consultant group in that field on Palmer amaranth. So just some opportunities pop up like that are huge. Now you're dealing with 10 consultants all in the same place, looking at the same thing, and all hearing the same message in regards to how to manage it. And advisory committees, we have a dairy advisory committee, we have a field crop advisory committee. Every team has these committees, bringing a couple of faculty people onto those committees to have them listen to what are the needs. It's a grower panel. What are the needs of the counties? And identifying those needs is the purpose of that whole meeting. Page 2, faculty engagement. I see some of the responsibilities is securing these cooperators. Someone, that's new on campus has no clue who the growers are. Where to even start? Where do I start with this project? Where do I find the problems? Where can I find a field? And how do I get on that field? They don't know me, but they know me. So that's the key is that trust that I've built with producers over 25 years. And I explained to them, most are like, yep, it's yours, let's go. And they're ready to go and we get it done. Field days, had Vipin out we have a couple field days. Twilight tours, Mark Sorrells and Gary Bergstrom, I did these all the time. Mark does some great plots throughout the state. I always try to get 2 of them in my region for that reason, because they're variety trials. I want to see what's growing well, what does well in my region. And then we'll do a twilight tour where Gary or Mark will come in and we'll invite growers and, walk them through the different varieties and what looks good, what to plant next year. Grant dollars, put a little smiley face next to this one. Right, I mentioned earlier, 25% of our budget we generate through grants, through program dollars, things we put on. So I'm always looking to jump on any grants and things, working with faculty to help us out in that regards, to keep that budget. It's tough to do anything without justifying some of the dollars towards those projects. So I told Vipin today, I was going to mention this, as grants start coming in and things, how to get me involved in regards to the funding situation. Again, local research data should have had a big star next to that. That's huge to producers and consultants. They'll talk about that all day if it happened next to their farm. I have these guys all the time as guest speakers at my big meetings. That puts them in front of a lot of growers. Those 2 meetings, that's 700 people just in Northwest New York that you get in front of and hear your data. And I do books. So all the presentations, all the slides are in one big book. They take that home. They're marketing it. They take it home. They need it. They pull it back out. They may call Vipin and say, hey, you said this and this. Tell me more about this. So it's advancing. Any kind of articles you guys write, what's cropping up is something that gets published on it, but who sees it outside? How many growers actually see what's cropping up? Where they're going to see some of the stuff we do, and I can pass that on, put it in my publications, and get that out so more growers are exposed to that. Fact sheets. Katrina Kettings does a fantastic job online. If you've ever been on her nutrient management spear program, all the fact sheets, which I've written a couple, I've been involved in students writing those. Just a wealth of knowledge on that fact sheet online. All right, so I mentioned before, we have local issues, and every county is different. So we have to just, go through and just, handle some of the local things. But we're also looking at big ticket items. What's something that's not just my region or one county? What's going on in the state? What's going on in the Northeast? What big ticket ones do we have to look at? For me, herbicide resistance is huge. We found water hemp. It's been 11 years ago now. I found the first plant in Seneca County, and still we're no closer to really getting a handle on it because it's so out of hand. I think it's a problem that it's going to keep Vipin, and I see some of his graduate students back here busy for a long time. I brought him more seeds today of some stuff to test. So that's a huge one. That's not going to go away anytime soon. Alternate seed insecticides, I mentioned that the neonics are not going to be able to be used on corn and soybean after 2029. So we've been the last 3 years looking at different modes of action on seeds, and we're working with the ag and markets for the next 3 years on projects for that. New crops, malt barley was a big one, working with Gary and Mark Sorrells. I mean, we've got that to a point now where I think it's on its own. And the maltsters are there, the growers are there, and it's doing its own thing. Hemp is in that same situation. New, better varieties. Mark's small grain program in working on new varieties for New York, malting barley particularly. He's got a new spring variety with different disease resistances, and now they're working on a fall malting barley variety for New York. So that's huge for local. Free. Put you up there, you didn't even know it, huh? All right, so this is one of our trials. The rest is going to be some pictures here. One of our water hemp trials. This is a cornfield. You can see where the pre-emerges were on the back hillside. It's clean, but this is the early posts. And look at that. That's water hemp. All those weeds is one weed that's resistant to Roundup. And so Vipin and his crew are looking at what are the herbicides out there other than Roundup that we can use both as a pre-emerge and an early post to control this weed. Another one here is Italian ryegrass on your left. That's a new one we found here last year that Vipin did test, and it was Roundup resistant. And so I brought him some other samples, and we'll be testing some other spots that start getting controlled like they normally were. This is a new one that this is 2 weeks ago. This is Palmer amaranth down in Yates in Ontario County. I mean, Vipin's perfect for this. This is what he dealt with at Kansas. So he's not surprised to him. It's a shock to us when I see it because I'm just not used to seeing it, but it's popping up in areas down there. It's a lot more than we first expected. So this is something we're going to try to tackle pretty early on and try to control this in soybeans. Just one of the when we have these plots, invite people out, consultants and growers to look at these plots, walk through them, do a walking tour, show them what actually has worked and how well. The seed insecticide, that's an important thing for corn and soybean growers. So we've been doing trials for the past 3 years, looking at different modes of action other than the neonics, and looking at control mainly of seed corn maggot, digging up corn plants, making assessments. We'll continue that for another 3 years. Working with Cacciapavina over in entomology, looking at seed corn maggot. That's the fly you see there on the sticky card. We've been doing that for 3 years, monitoring their population dynamics. We now are seeing that they're actually emerging as early in March. They overwinter as an adult, and we didn't expect them to be able to come out that early, but through this program, we found it. We're looking at peaks and getting more on degree day models that were completely wrong for us in New York. So we're working closely with her on that. Also, cover crops. Cover crops are huge right now. Are cover crops going to be more attracted to seed corn maggot? Going back to corn. So we're planting these trials in non-cover crop and cover crop areas, looking to see, are we seeing more injury in corn? This is one of our call it twilight tours. That was Gary Berkshire and myself going back and forth in a malting barley field with some growers. I love doing these, a lot of one-on-one time, and they're very effective. One of Mark's trials, which he does many of them across the state. They're kind of cool to walk through and look at the different varieties. There's another one of our twilight tours, and I love this is one where the grower was serious, man. He backed that beer cooler right up next to the wheat. So we had a little party after we talked about wheat. He was serious about that one. And these guys, as we come to an end here, Gary Bergstrom and Nelson Shields were good friends of mine for 25 years. And it's sad to see them retire and move on to the next stage. I did the same thing with Bill Cox and Russ Hahn. And I usually, when their last speaking engagement, I try to get them out at one of the big congresses, and they do a presentation, and I do a presentation. I have lots of pictures of all of them, and I did a really nice one for both of these guys this year. And we put them in front there, we present them, I talk about them, and then I let the growers talk about them. And it's amazing, these two gentlemen, all the 40+ years each of them, working with the growers, the respect that they had, still have. And to hear the growers actually speak up about them and what they did for them over the last 40 years. I remember this, and this, and it's just a fantastic recognition. And I'll continue to do that. I won't be around for you, buddy. I'll be retired before you retire. But this is just something it's important to me to recognize these folks that have helped me out for so long and helped the growers of New York out for so long. That's it. A little different. Not a lot of research there, but it's really, again, I think this is aimed more at the younger folks that are looking, young in their careers, that this situation is out there in the middle that I didn't know about as a graduate student. And any questions for me? Yes.
Well, thank you very much for telling these stories. And I can't emphasize enough to underline or echo what you say. It's so important to have these connections to the growers. And you had at some point the words also longitudinal, so long-term engagement, so that there's a stable person that you can talk with, that you establish these connections. I think this is really important. How threatened is this in the modern times when we need to be more efficient and maybe don't allow ourselves anymore that luxury, quote unquote, to establish personal connections? And I see this dramatically over the last 20 odd years that I've been here within the university. I don't have an extension appointment, but most of the people I interact with now on a daily basis, I have never spent in the time in the same room with them, because I'm just doing it transactional with web interfaces and emails. How much of a danger is that in your profession, and how can we avert it? Because I think it's absolutely critical, as you say, to have these personal connections.
I think it is crucial, face to face. I am old school. I was taught by an old school extension person.
And the next generation, are they all still old school or
No,
they're new school?
and I'm trying, and I tell them, learn from me, watch what I do.
Mhm.
You know, my partner in crime on the team, I'm like, watch what I do. I've been successful doing the things. It still works,
Mhm.
right? Old school, boots on the ground, face to face, still works. And most of our growers, the average age of a grower is 58 years old.
Mhm.
So they're also in my age that, they want that.
Mhm.
Some of the younger folks, the younger generation now, it doesn't matter. They're all this. They're not as bothered by it. But the older farmers still want the face to face. They still want you there, and they're just elated. When I come on farm, they're like, I can't believe you came out to see me. Oh yeah, what else would I do? That's what I do. So I think it could be in danger. But are the farmers evolving at the same pace where they're not needing that face to face either? The younger generation there. So it may, as they, as educators and farmers get older, they may not need that.
Well,
As
or
much.
maybe they don't realize what's missing until it's too late.
Yeah,
Uh,
that would be a shame. I'll be gone by then.
Yeah.
I won't be.
Maybe it's
I got 8 more years, but but
it's possible.
yeah, I just, all I can do is train the best I can and lead by
Yeah, yeah.
example and show them what works. So it's a great point. Yep.
It's really cool to hear about the ways the team and extension in general is engaging with different cultural groups, having the Spanish translation, and then engaging with the plant community by mail instead of email, newsletters, and the more social media for younger generations. Are there other cultural groups that are getting kind of like a more specific type of engagement that you're targeting, or are there states that you think are like the next goal that you're gonna engage more people with?
I think, for us, having Yates, Ontario, and Seneca, where we have the plain community, that's where I'm jumping back in and engaging more, because they're getting left behind a little bit with technology. So we didn't have Yates for the last 3 years. We weren't in it, but now we're back in it. So I have spent a lot of time in that county, and you can see that they're like, you've been missed. Because I was so always on the boots on the ground, you have to be. You can't just call them. There's no cell phones. You have to be on farm. You have to set up a time. So the plain community needs to continue to be educated. The younger plain community coming up, sharp. I mean, they're learning from their fathers. Worked their fathers. I work with some of their grandfathers now, which is a little weird. Over 25 years. So I do see that community is something that it's expanding, and we need to continue to focus there. But outside of the Hispanic group, they're coming from Honduras, Ecuador, Jamaica, Mexico. So there's a lot of different minority groups from that Spanish speaking. There's different colloquial. So she's trying to, make sure that everybody's understanding her because of the different colloquialism between the nations and things that people are from. So other than that, we have some of the Native American communities. We're seeing them. There's a big one out towards Erie County, towards Buffalo, that is becoming more vocal about production of white corn and blue corn and some of those more native type production. So that's another one that's gaining momentum with us. I wasn't sure. I went back. I think you were before that.
Small farmers to like prevent the trend of corporate buyout, or are we okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it's corporate buyout. I guess I wouldn't call it that. I mean, we have a small farm program here. There's a lot of support on the campus with the small farm program. A lot of it, we see the small farms comes down to no generation to come behind them. So we're seeing no transfer of farm, and we're seeing, we're seeing that a lot with some of the smaller dairies. There's nobody that wants to farm. Nobody wants to do dairy anymore. It's a hard job. I wouldn't want to be a dairyman, dairy woman, whatever. It's hard. So we see that, I think, is more that we just don't have the younger generation that wants to spend the money. And they're not making the money that they want to make. And that's where we're seeing a lot of these small farms. We have a lot of support for small farms. Even on our team, Nancy's our small farm support specialist. And believe me, we try our hardest. We do not want to see them be bought out. Yes.
Kind of going off that, like as prices are being driven up by like these buyouts, are there efforts then being made for people that do want to put in time to like having a small farm, so like getting into it, like first generation farmers and like there's an effort like that?
Yeah, so a lot of these they're trying to protect that land, and so it doesn't go to something other than farming. So we're seeing a lot of the individual towns are paying that farm to stay a farm. And there's programs, actually, Vip and I are working with one right now. I just stopped by and got a letter of support from a small 300-acre farmer. And he worked with the state on a program that was a farmer who did not have a next of kin. And he worked with this organization to work with this other farmer, and he bought this from it, and the farmer still helps him. But it's over time, he will inherit that farm. He'll pay off that thing. So we have some programs to keep small farms small, actively and engaged. I actually looked at it last night online. I'll find it because they had their story online of how these two couples didn't want to farm anymore, but didn't want to give up the 100-year-old farm that their 3 generations have been farming. And I can look that up for you. It's in my feed.
All right, I think we are after 1:10 now. Let's stop here. But thanks our speaker.
Yeah.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.